One of the reasons that we're here, other than being on the board for Sisters in Crime, is that Jim has been a writer and is a writer, a bookstore owner. He's a bookseller now. He's been a publisher and still is a publisher. So he sort of walked all the way around this business, has been on a couple of the Sisters in Crime Publishing Summit teams, looking at new technologies as well as old. So he's a great resource for sort of walking all the way around the choices that we face as writers. I am a finance undergraduate major and a lawyer who's spent a quarter of a century teaching in a business school and counseling businesses. So I approach it not just as a writer, but with a business eye too. And as you've heard this morning or this afternoon already, there's a lot that leaves even close students of the publishing industry a little flabbergasted. So if you're in the flabbergasted crowd, you're in good company. The traditional New York publisher also involves e-publishing and other kinds of things, but we typically, as Libby pointed out, we look to them for professional editing, professional design, widespread distribution. One thing I really want to emphasize, and if you haven't seen it already, you're now, I hope, all members of Sisters in Crime, on the website we have up this year's Publishers Summit report. We visited the American Libraries Association meeting. We interviewed librarians and book distributors and book publishers and book publicists and talked to them about how books find their way into readers' hands in this brave new world. And I cannot tell you how many times it was emphasized to us that librarians find books through reviews on Library Journal, Kirkus, Book List, and Publishers Weekly. They're the 4 library-centric review sources. Okay? Can't emphasize enough the importance of review. And so traditional houses are plugged into getting those kinds of reviews. They have bargaining power, as we've talked about today already. They offer advances. They may not be huge advances, but they're money ahead of time, which if you're paying the light bill can be helpful. There's cons. They're highly competitive. It's hard to break in. There's, with some houses in particular, a short time to prove yourself. Used to, they would grow writers. Now they're looking for return on investment and they want you in and out. So some folks have been traditionally published and found a very short life expectancy there.
I like books. And moreover, I think that books are meaningful. I think that it says something about who we are, that we have books on our shelves, that we have rooms full of books. It's a statement about, who we are as individuals. How many of you have walked into a friend's house and looked at the books on the shelves to kind of glean clues about who they might be? If you do read Shelf Awareness, a couple of days ago they reported, as they do each month, on the figures from the American Association of Publishers, and the numbers are telling us that 80% of the trade book business is still in print, 20% is in e. I respect what David says, and I think he may very well turn out to be right about the fate of the printed book, but I hope he's wrong. I dearly hope he's wrong. A couple weeks ago, we've just finished our our August-September text rush for the beginning of the fall semester. And so by this point, I think I know what's going on. I see a student with a Kindle or I see a student with an iPad, and these were 2 separate instances. And I walk up to them and I say, so are you finding the books you're looking for? I'm thinking I'm asking the right question now. And they say, yes, they are. But, and here's what I thought was kind of amazing. Their baskets, they also had baskets with them, their baskets were full. Because by now, 8 months later, these students had figured out that what they really wanted was to have the book on their iPad or Kindle and to have the book on paper. Because they've started to appreciate that they can do some things on paper, or they're comfortable doing some things on paper that they're not comfortable doing on screen.
Last summer visiting Google Books because they're looking at the technology and they had kind of latched onto this before any of us. I found myself doing the same thing, buying it both ways, but they were trying to find the technology that would allow them to both sell an ebook and package it with a real book, because they knew that was something consumers were going to want. And their words to us were, that's more complicated than you know. So.
But I do think that there is an amazing opportunity for small presses, for indie presses, to get books into the hands of readers. And when I mean books, when I say books, I mean books. I think the small presses do many things very, very well. And they don't have the reach of the big publishers, but it almost doesn't matter anymore because they distribute through many of the same channels. Almost every bookseller in the country will buy from the Ingram Book Company. Some of these companies are fairly substantial now, like Poison Pen, I think is a big, well-established publishing company, but a lot of smaller ones as well. The small presses also do give you many of the services that the big companies do. I mean, small press editors edit, small presses have publicists. They do get books to those review periodicals. If you look at Publishers Weekly and Kirkus and Booklist and Library Journal, you see that a lot of small press titles do get covered there, especially books from the better established and the respected small presses, and there are plenty of them. To me, the key question is access to market. I mean, does the small press have that kind of reach into the marketplace that you might not easily be able to replicate for yourself? And what I mean by access to market is, can that small press get books into bookstores? When I had my own store in Indiana, one of the things that I would do constantly for writers, they would walk in and they say, I'm thinking about publishing with XYZ Press. What can you tell me about them? And I would just have them come around to behind the counter or behind my desk. We'd bring them up on iPage, which is Ingram's online database, and I'd say, well, let's look to see if Ingram's got the books. Let's look to see what terms of sale they're being offered to. Terms of sale are really, really important. So terms of sale mean a standard book comes to a bookstore generally at 46% off the suggested retail price. The standard book is returnable to the publisher for full credit. And well, those are the basics, but returnability and discount. So if you walk in with a book that's only being offered at 10% off suggested retail price and is not returnable, you're not competitive.
The books I'm interested in don't seem to be put out by the 6 major publishers, but the independent bookstore will help you if you are fumble thumbs with your iPad or whatever. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that I've heard of, I don't remember the details, about Google getting into publications as a kind of competitor for Amazon.
Actually, right now, if those of you are connected, you could go to KenyonCollegeBookstore.com. You could look up any Google ebook you wanted, and you could buy it from me, even though none of us are in Ohio at the moment. But your local bookstore may offer this as well, and I would absolutely encourage you to look at that if ebooks are how you're reading. The Google Books catalog isn't as large as Amazon's catalog. Google doesn't have all of the self-publishing tools that Amazon has, so a lot of people who are kind of doing in the do-it-yourself world are on Amazon, and they're not on Google. But it is a great opportunity that allows small independent bookstores to compete and offer ebooks.
Can you explain how ebooks work in libraries for authors? I mean, if my ebook is in a library, can it be lent out to everybody?
There are multiple kinds of contracts. Initially, the contract sold the book, leased the book to the bookstore ad infinitum, which they thought was a great idea. The libraries thought it was a great idea because, I mean, books, after they get rid of a while, they have to, be replaced. If the audiobook never wears out or the ebook never wears out, So then we came along with the big HarperCollins kerfluffle, where HarperCollins said, we're only going to lease it for 26 leases, which is a year, assuming that your library checks out a book for 2 weeks at a time. And for writers, that makes more sense, less sense for librarians and patrons and taxpayers. Okay, so you can see we're still working out what this means.
In all the cases I'm aware of, the library's loaning an ebook the way they loan a print book. They buy one copy, they can only loan it to one person at a time. It's automatically returned, which some patrons like because they never have to remember to return the book. It returns itself. And then it can be checked out again, but it can only be read by one person, so it's no different than a print book. Libraries pay a lot more for an ebook than they pay for a print book. It's the flip of what most consumers are used to. Oh, an ebook, it's cheaper, right? Well, for a library, it's a lot more expensive. They pay more than market value, quite a lot more, for a book that they can only loan out the way they loan out a print book. They get a discount on print books. They pay full price and then some, because they have to pay overdrive.
Any other questions? Yes.
How does one check out an ebook? Do they take their Kindle to the library and have it downloaded on it? Or do the library provide the Kindle type of thing?
It varies. Some libraries are actually loaning the physical Kindle with books loaded in. Some will help you load it onto your Kindle, and some of them are coming through your computer. You just stay at home, download it from their site to whatever listening or reading device you have.
Libby mentioned the fight between beta and VHS. Any sense of whether, because Amazon has such a large percentage of the market, that the Amazon Kindle platform or format will become the standard in the industry, because someone like IBM, nobody else is going to be able to come up with something better until Apple did?
I think it's way too early to crown a victor in this race. As an independent bookseller, I hope that the EPUB standard has some legs, because that's the standard that I'm able to sell as a bookseller. And if we want to maintain a kind of viable, vibrant, marketplace that has multiple players, we better hope that EPUB has some legs.
Explain the difference between what you're talking about when you say EPUB and Kindle's platform.
Basically, we're down to two things. I mean, Amazon has its own format for Kindle books, and basically everybody else, this is simplifying a little bit, but basically everybody else uses the EPUB file. EPUB is an open standard, so anyone can use EPUB. EPUB files can be read on Sony, on the Nook, on the Kobo, on the iPad. The Google books generally, well, they come in multiple formats, but a lot of them come in EPUB. So basically that's where we are. I think if you're an author and you're doing it yourself, you should be in as many platforms as you possibly can be. I mean, it doesn't make sense, I think, it doesn't make sense to go exclusively with one over the other. Why give up the opportunity to sell in multiple venues, when you can do anything and when you have the opportunity to do it all?